Imagine holding a coin in your hand, not just a piece of metal to spend, but an object believed to carry the power of the gods themselves. For most of us, money is practical. It buys food, pays bills, and maybe sits in a savings account. But in the ancient world, money was far more than that. It could be sacred, it could be worshipped, it could even be feared. In temples across the Mediterranean, coins weren't just dropped in offering bowls, they were minted by priests, stamped with holy symbols and infused with religious meaning. A silver drachma might be dedicated to Athena, a gold aureus to Jupiter. To touch such a coin wasn't just an exchange of value, it was an encounter with the divine. But here's the question: what happens when money itself becomes a god? Does it strengthen an empire, or does it set the stage for betrayal, collapse, and chaos? In this video, we're going to uncover the forgotten history of sacred money. You'll see how emperors tried to make their coins holy, how temples turned currency into ritual, and how belief in divine coinage sometimes held entire empires together, until it all came crashing down. Stay with me, because the story of sacred money isn't just ancient history. In ways you might not expect, it echoes in our wallets and banknotes today. And by the end of this journey, you might find yourself asking a simple but uncomfortable question: do we still treat money like a modern god? Long before the rise of global banking, stock markets, or even paper bills, money was already intertwined with something far older: religion. The earliest civilizations didn't just invent coins to trade, they sanctified them. They believed money itself could be part of a dialogue with the gods. In Mesopotamia, one of humanity's first great urban centers, temples weren't just houses of worship, they were also the heart of the economy. Priests controlled granaries, land, and precious metals. When silver or barley was exchanged, it was often done under the watchful eye of the temple. The transaction wasn't merely economic, it was spiritual. Paying debt, giving offerings, or trading goods all carried the weight of divine oversight. As coinage developed, this sacred connection only deepened. In ancient Greece, certain coins were minted directly for temple use. Pilgrims to Delphi or Olympia didn't just bring offerings of livestock or pottery, they brought coins inscribed with the faces of gods. These coins weren't everyday currency for bread or wine. They were designed for sacrifice, for rituals, for honoring the divine. And the symbolism was powerful. Holding a coin stamped with Athena S owl or Apollo S profile wasn't just holding money. It was holding a piece of divine order, a reminder that prosperity flowed from higher powers. To reject the coin was to reject the god. Here's the fascinating part. In these early societies, money wasn't fully separated from faith. It lived in the overlap. It was both a tool of trade and a vessel of belief. And that blending of the sacred with the economic would become one of the most enduring and dangerous themes in the history of money. If temples sanctified the first coins, emperors quickly realized they could take this one step further. Why not make themselves divine through money? A ruler, S face stamped onto coinage wasn't just a symbol of political authority. It was propaganda, a reminder that the emperor wasn't just your leader, but chosen by the gods or even a god himself. Take Alexander the Great. After his conquests, his successors minted coins showing him with the horns of Zeus Ammon, merging his image with that of a deity. This wasn't subtle. It declared, "The conqueror you follow is no mere man. He is divine." Every transaction reinforced that message. Every marketplace, every hand that exchanged those coins spread the belief. The Romans mastered this tactic. Emperors like Augustus and later Hadrian used coins to fuse their political image with divine legitimacy. Temples might proclaim the emperor a living god, but coins carried that proclamation into every home, every province. Imagine holding a coin with Caesar's face inscribed with titles like Divus, the divine. Spending money became a daily act of loyalty, even worship. But here's where it gets interesting. Divine coinage wasn't only about glorifying the ruler. It was about control. If the people believed their coins were sacred, stamped with a godlike emperor, then rejecting the currency meant rejecting the gods themselves. And who would dare do that? Yet, this strategy carried risks. As we'll see, when faith in a ruler faltered, so too did the aura of his divine coins. What was once sacred could quickly become a symbol of tyranny, or worse, blasphemy. Stay with me, because in the next chapter we'll see how these divine coins didn't just sit in treasuries. They were woven into rituals, sacrifices, and festivals, blurring the line between economy and religion. Coins weren't just tokens of trade. In many societies, they were woven directly into rituals of worship. Inside the marble temples of Greece or the sprawling sanctuaries of Rome, money didn't simply change hands. It crossed the boundary between the human and the divine. Pilgrims traveling to Delphi, for example, didn't just bring offerings of fruit or livestock. They carried specially minted coins, stamped with sacred symbols like Apollo's lyre or the owl of Athena. These coins could be deposited at the temple treasury as an offering, used to pay priests or dedicated during festivals. To spend them wasn't merely an economic act, it was a ritual. Each coin became a tiny prayer in metal. Temples often became the largest banks of the ancient world. They stored wealth, issued loans, and redistributed offerings. But unlike today's financial institutions, their vaults were seen as extensions of the god's authority. A temple's treasury wasn't just a strongbox. It was sacred ground. To steal from it wasn't simple theft. It was sacrilege. And for ordinary people, sacred coins carried a special weight. Some believed they offered protection, like a charm or talisman. Others kept them in the home as blessings, never daring to spend them. This created a fascinating divide. While one type of money circulated in markets for bread, oil, and wine, another, the divine coinage, moved in a world of temples, rituals, and faith. But as powerful as this fusion of money and ritual was, it also created fragility. What happened when the sacredness of coins was questioned, or when rulers abused their supposed divine right? That's where the cracks began to show. And in our next chapter, we'll explore what happened when sacred money collapsed, when divine coins lost their aura, and with it, the trust of entire empires. For all their divine imagery and sacred rituals, coins were still made of metal, and metals could be debased, melted down, or stretched thinner than faith itself. Sacred money might have carried the face of a god or emperor, but when economic reality cracked, even the holiest coins could lose their power. Take the Roman Empire. For centuries, emperors minted coins that proclaimed divine favor. But as Rome faced constant wars and rising costs, the government began to debase its silver coins, mixing them with cheaper metals. On the surface, the coins still bore the emperor's image and still carried inscriptions of divinity. Yet people quickly noticed the difference. The shine faded. The weight felt wrong. Trust was broken, and when trust broke, so did the sacred aura. A coin stamped with a god's image meant nothing if a baker refused to accept it. Other empires faced the same dilemma. In Greece, temple coinage that once symbolized piety was sometimes overissued to cover debts. What was once a token of devotion turned into evidence of corruption. The sacred became profane. And when divine coinage failed, the fallout wasn't just economic. It was spiritual. Imagine believing that your offerings to a god were suddenly worthless, that the money you thought was holy had been corrupted. This wasn't just inflation, it was betrayal. People felt abandoned not only by rulers, but by the gods themselves. That collapse left deep scars. It showed that even when money is wrapped in religion, it lives or dies by trust. And once that sacred trust is gone, no amount of divine imagery can save it. In the next chapter, we'll see how this lesson echoed into later eras, from medieval kings who ruled by divine right to the modern currencies that still carry whispers of the sacred. The collapse of sacred coinage in the ancient world didn't end the marriage of money and belief. Instead, it evolved, reshaped by new rulers, religions, and societies. The idea that money could carry divine legitimacy never truly disappeared. It simply found new forms. In medieval Europe, kings stamped their faces on coins not just as a sign of political power, but as proof of divine right. The monarch was God's chosen ruler, and his image on the coin was a daily reminder of that authority. To spend the king's money was to acknowledge his rule as divinely ordained. Refusing the coin wasn't just rebellion, it bordered on heresy. The church itself also wielded enormous financial power. Pilgrims traveling to holy sites often bought special tokens or blessed coins, not unlike the sacred offerings of ancient Greece and Rome. These objects carried no practical economic use, but they symbolized faith, devotion, and spiritual protection. The echoes of temple coinage lived on in medieval shrines. Even today, traces of sacred money are everywhere. The phrase, "In God we trust," printed on the US dollar is a modern invocation of faith tied to currency. For centuries, Islamic coinage bore inscriptions from the Quran, blending monetary authority with religious law. Across the world, money has continued to borrow legitimacy from the sacred. What all of this reveals is simple. Whether in ancient temples, medieval courts, or modern mints, money has always needed something greater than metal or paper to sustain it. It needed belief, and often that belief was framed in divine terms. But what lessons does this legacy leave us today? Can we truly separate money from faith, trust, or even worship? In the final chapter, we'll uncover what sacred money teaches us about the fragility and the power of belief in our financial systems. The story of sacred money may feel ancient, but its lessons are anything but outdated. At its core, divine coinage shows us a truth we often overlook. Money has never just been about metal, paper, or digits on a screen. It has always been about belief. When ancient Greeks offered coins to Apollo, or Romans trusted coins stamped with Caesar's face, they weren't just trusting currency. They were trusting in divine order, in authority, in something bigger than themselves. That same principle runs through every financial system we use today. Think about it. The bills in your wallet have no intrinsic value. The digital numbers in your bank account aren't backed by gold or silver. What makes them powerful is trust. Trust in governments. Trust in central banks. Trust in the invisible agreement that this is money. In a way, that's not so different from trusting that a coin carried the blessing of a god. But here's the danger. When belief is shaken, money falters. Just as sacred coins collapsed under debasement or corruption, modern currencies can collapse under inflation, mismanagement, or loss of faith. The gods may have changed, but the psychology hasn't. So what can we learn? First, that money is fragile. It survives only as long as people believe in it. Second, rulers and institutions often try to wrap money in higher ideals, divine right, national pride, religious faith, to keep that belief alive. And third, that once trust is broken, no image, inscription, or promise can restore it easily. The story of sacred money reminds us that our financial systems are built not just on economics, but on faith. And maybe the unsettling question we should ask ourselves is this: have we truly moved on from treating money like a god? Or have we simply given it a new temple? So, what do we learn from this journey into sacred money? Whether in the temples of Mesopotamia, the coins of Alexander, or the bills in our wallets today, money has always been more than a tool. It's a belief system, a kind of faith that holds societies together until it doesn't. And here's the question I'll leave you with. What would happen if money became sacred again today? Would people trust it more? Or would it only make the collapse more devastating? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think money is still a kind of modern religion? Drop your answer in the comments below, because the best ideas often come from you. If you enjoyed this dive into history's hidden side of money, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves history as much as you do. And if you're ready to see how money doesn't just rule, but sometimes fails completely, check out my next video, The Day All Money Stopped Working. Because history doesn't repeat itself, but when it comes to money, it often rhymes.